What's up, everybody? We are back. John Delarose here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction. I thought I actually already did a review of this book, and I've been in a weird spot the last, week where I've been packing because we actually got to move in the middle of this Corona craziness, which is just nutty. So it's been a stressful week, absolutely crazy. And I guess I forgot to review this book. This is the final volume of the Daredevil Epics, Volume 21, 1997 to 1998. Covers issues 365 through 380, and a -1, which they had a -1 event I'll talk about when I get there. And a Daredevil Deadpool annual crossover, which is kind of weird that those two characters would combine. And that's what we got. So 380 is the end of the Daredevil run. Now what's neat about Daredevil right here is this, ends the epics, and you've got this whole run, which I've already reviewed from 18 to 21, already out. And then you've got like 6-7 omnibuses worth of content, which is all a straight shot off after that. So if you really want to read a lot of Daredevil in a row, you can do that. And I might after this. Took a little break because it's a lot of Daredevil so far. But we start with 365, and we are in the middle of Carrie Nord, and I guess Joe Kelly takes over for Kessel at this point. But he basically, Joe Kelly finishes out the run here with Carrie Nord and finishes up all the plot lines which were going on with this Mr. Fear thing building, where strange things are happening. Mr. Fear kind of takes over and makes the Molten Man go crazy in the middle of a board meeting. Daredevil figures it out. We get a pause for this, point one. Now what happens was, these point ones, they did this point one initiative, I guess as a jumping on point, quote unquote, where they go back to before the character was this wasn't point one, sorry, that was a different initiative. -1. And they go back actually to before the first issue and do a thing. They do a Stan Lee introduction every time, and then they do the past, and this is Matt Murdock about to go to college. So very boring issue. They had some bad guys who were making fun of him because he's blind and all that, and it was just eminently skippable. I didn't really have much to do with anything. I guess you got to know his dad, the boxer, a little bit better, but whatever. All right, now Carrie Nord's off with this issue, and Gene Colan actually starts with art, and it still continues this sort of Mr. Fear storyline, which has been developing. And Gene Colan's art is very nice. I don't know if I like it more than Carrie Nord's art. It's different, to be sure, a little more classic, but very enjoyable. So Daredevil ends up going into prison, and you get to see him fight Mr. Nord Mr. Fear, and then the Gladiator. So continuing right along. I can't even talk tonight. I don't even know what I'm doing. It's amazing that I remember these issues because I thought I'd already reviewed it, and I'm pretty far into some other books right now. But good stuff. This was a really wonderful Daredevil run, and I think Joe Kelly honestly was just as good as Kessel, if not better, on the writing. And then that sort of Mr. Fear ends. Now, this is the weird thing. I guess it's a crossover where it started in Deadpool, and Typhoid Mary's coming back, and she's been gone for a while. She's a classic Daredevil villain who shows up from time to time. And Deadpool's kind of working with her, kind of working with Daredevil. You don't exactly know what he's doing. It's just distracting, and you got this kind of lame 90s art in here. I thought this was a pretty skippable issue again. So you get the point one, or the -1 initiative, and then you get this, and meh. But I want to get back into this storyline, because this storyline is awesome. And in the last volume, Black Widow starts going around. She's mad because of the Onslaught thing and the Avengers disappearing, and the bad guys always seeming to come back. So she's finally killing people. And now she's getting really in-depth, and Matt kind of chases her down, gets involved in another conspiracy with her, and it continues for a couple different issues here. You thought the Cold War was over, think again. And we get, let's see, Gene Colan's done now. So we get Ariel Olivetti guest penciling, who ends up guest penciling a lot. I don't like Ariel's art quite as much. You get some weird shadows in here. This is probably the inker Pierre Brito doing this. Doesn't quite work out. I mean, the proportions are kind of weird in a lot of the figures. I don't think it's quite as detailed as Gene Colan's art. You know, some weird stuff like that, which doesn't quite work out. But basically, Matt's hunting down the Black Widow, and his girlfriend's mad about it. He ends up with this like weird Soviet lab where they've captured her with Ursa Major and Vanguard, and there's this whole how do I want to describe this? This twisty Cold War plot going on where there's subterfuge and you don't know who's working for who, and eventually see like just some of this art's here like just seems a little on the lazy side. Look at that. It's a weird big shoulder, and I just don't like his art as much as the last couple artists by any means. I just think it ends up not nearly as good. But the storyline continues along very nicely, and we resolve the Black Widow issue. It turns out she's kind of helping things and was kind of playing a bit because, you know, that's what she does as a spy. And she kisses him. Oh my gosh. And then we get the fallout. So there's a weird scan right here. I don't know if it comes up on the phone, but it's a little grainy. Again, this happens in Epic collections from time to time. This is what I'm talking about with the like lack of detailed art, which doesn't quite work out. Look at the face. You're just like, you're missing some detail in the face there, and it just looks really weird. So this girl shows up. She's Foggy's sister, and this starts another plot line, which also ties back into everything. And this other girl kind of gets kidnapped in the process. Hey, you know, it does, the art makes a little bit of a difference here to where I'm not quite enjoying it as much as I was before. But the storyline does continue very nicely, and I like how it goes with the first things. That's what I'm talking about with the faces again. Lack of detail on the penciling. And this is a Ghost Rider crossover, and Ghost Rider ends up killing the guy who would have given him information about the whole situation, and Ghost Rider's unrepentant about it. So we get another artist here, R-A-A-B, Rob. I don't know how to pronounce that. And we get a very weird start where Daredevil's got this like cucumber mask thing, and she's giving him a facial in her underwear. So I asked my wife to give me a facial in her underwear, and didn't go so well. So TMI. All right. So these continue on. Daredevil's investigating what's going on with this Mr. Fear situation, trying to hunt him down. And it turns out he's manipulating a lot of people. There's judges being manipulated. There's cops being manipulated. He's set up a whole trap for everybody. And on the flip side, we've got Karen, who's still mad at Matt Murdock, and she's meeting with Foggy's mom, and they're kind of teaming up in kind of in a bad way. They make it look like it's like a lot worse than it actually is, and it turns out they're just kind of girl bonding. So it is a pretty cute thing. And Ariel Olivetti's back on this this deal, which, you know, just the art is just like not the best quality all the way through this volume, unfortunately. But we're coming to a pretty big climax, which is very interesting and very big. People are getting killed. Oh my gosh, and here we are, Mr. Fear in issue 375. And we have we start out with some legal stuff. And on this one, this is a oversized issue, and you get all of these artists on here. So the art varies a lot depending on the page, who does it, and all that. You get Chris Claremont with a story assist, which is interesting to help wrap things up. And we get a lot of friendly faces on the art, which, you know, sometimes is really good, sometimes not so much. As you can see, kind of here, this didn't work out so well. This page was all right. And it's back and forth. This is the next few pages of this weird impressionistic style, which doesn't fit with the rest of it. But it gets back into superhero fare, and Dr. Fear shows up. Black Widow shows up to kind of recap some of that event. really nice wrap-up conclusion, and Karen in the shower. Little gratuitous, but that's all right. And people are going to kill Karen. I guess she's framed for murdering a cop, and it turns out he was under Mr. Fear's influence and like going around killing people and stuff like that. So she was really just doing self-defense, and it really wrapped things up quickly. It looked like he wanted a couple more issues to deal with this, and then they kind of just skipped ahead a little bit to finish it all up. But it was still a very satisfying conclusion to the arc right here. And honestly, I would have ended the series right here and the volume right here if I could have. That was a very wonderful run, which started in the second half of the Purgatory and Paradise volume, all the way to here. The only sad parts really were the -1 issue in the annual, which just weren't helpful whatsoever. But they were good. Even with the mediocre art, the storyline was great. So it was enjoyable. And then we get just a random Daredevil miniseries at the end of this, which Scott Lobdell writes, and Coley Hamner pencils, who I'm not familiar with, Jason Martin on inks, and again, this is just like mediocre 90s art, and this is a very weird storyline. It felt like they had this like in the can as a miniseries. I don't like some of this stuff. Like the inks are very thick right here, and they just don't. It looks a little too cartoony for what it is, especially with this weird subterfuge storyline. Matt Murdock has lost his memories. He is now some weird guy in France, and it turns out he did this intentionally to go undercover. There's only one S.H.I.E.L.D. guy who knows about it, though, and the S.H.I.E.L.D. guy gets killed, and Wilson Fisk is involved, and it's an alright miniseries for what it is. But what happens with it is it just like resets, and so it's it just felt like they pulled this one out of the can or something, and it's like they had it, and it's like, oh, we better tack it on while we figure out what we're doing with Daredevil, and it really had no bearing on anything else. Mediocre, weird, cartoony art, which doesn't fit Daredevil at all. This looks like an old 60s Spider-Man cartoon, with like that kind of like rigid art. And we never really see Daredevil because he is in a, he puts on this weird costume. He doesn't know who he is. He fights anyway, and they eventually recover his memories, of course, and he goes back home. And that was it. And then we get one wrap-up issue, and this is the last issue. And Chichester comes back, who was doing the Fall from Grace and all that, those very funky storylines, and just does a one-off issue about the Kingpin, and in his convoluted fashion, the art at least picked up better for this issue. I like it a little better. Has a very convoluted storyline with going back into the past and all this stuff, and having a trial, of course, and I just wasn't interested in it at this point. After those last 4 issues, this was hard to read, and a fake Daredevil shows up, Death Devil, and very convoluted all the way around. And we get a little bullseye too. So yeah, convoluted final issue, bad storytelling, art picks up, and it's a really sad way to end. And then you get this like, oh, the end, very sad way to end the volume and end the series. It just like, it felt like it really wrapped up in that 375 very nicely. And then they just tacked on these 5 months of comics for absolutely no reason. And they were, the Lobdell one was fine. It was just acted like a miniseries, which didn't matter. And then 380 was pretty unreadable, just like much of that the Fall from Grace arc. So that's it. It's a mixed bag, but most of it's really good. I love this storyline that goes through 20 and 21. So if you can read that, definitely would do so. And I think it wrapped up that whole Daredevil Mr. Fear storyline very nicely, and had a lot of cool Black Widow elements to it too, which I like because the movie's coming out, so I'm happy to see Black Widow get a nice feature role. But, you had 7 issues or so, which dragged it down about a third of the volume, which makes it a little bit tougher than normal. So I'd, call this probably a 6.5 out of 10. And the reason I give it 6.5, even though I really enjoyed that main storyline, is just because the art really suffered when Ariel Olivetti took over. Also, so just the combo of it made this volume a little worse than the last, but still pretty good readable for about 2/3 of this volume. All right, that's it. That's my Daredevil read through from 18 to 21. We finally got there. I will probably start the Marvel Knights omnibus next. I'll show it to you. Doop doop doop. This is the next one. This is what comes next. They restart Daredevil with an all-new collector's item #1. And you get Joe Quesada in there, and Kevin Smith writes it. And we're going to get Daredevil 0 through 15 in half. Then we get a Daredevil Father miniseries and some other stuff. So it's it's an omnibus, but it looks about epic sized. I think it's just like thicker paper a little bit, and that's it. So that's what comes next. The epic collections will end. They pretty much stop when the first volume number stops. So that's how you kind of know where it ends. It's a great spot. I mean, honestly, if you want to read the Marvel Universe, stopping at the end of the epic collections is not a bad way to go, because not that much great stuff really happens after that. Most of the universe is pretty set. And if you just read these and like act like this is all a single story, and then it kind of ends at where the epic collections ends, you'll have a pretty robust library and a pretty good story overall for most of the characters. All right, that's it. Hit that like and subscribe button, everybody. I will be back soon with some more reviews. See you.